This episode of Simple Civics Greenville County is made possible by Beth and Mike Andrews, Kelly Byers and Tom Wagner, Elizabeth and Grant Bogus. We thank them for their support and for connecting you, our listeners, with candidates so you'll be informed voters this primary season. You can give to Simple Civics too. Just visit our website at simplecivicsgreenvillecounty.org. On Tuesday, June 9th, South Carolina holds its statewide primary elections. I'm Katie Smith with Greater Good Greenville, and over the next several weeks, we are pleased to bring you interviews with most of the candidates in contested races that are in Greenville County. Today, we feature candidates for the Republican primary for U.S. Congress District 4, which includes Central and Northern Greenville County and Spartanburg County. Whichever candidate wins the Republican primary in June will face candidates from other parties on the ballot in the general election in November. But first, a quick primer on why primaries are so important. The statewide primaries are when political parties choose their candidates to be on the ballot in the general election on November 3rd. This primary on June 9th will be for important offices like State House of Representatives, Governor, State Superintendent of Education, Congress, and one of our U.S. Senate seats, and our Greenville County Council. Some of these primary races will determine the winner in November because no one from a different party has filed to run, meaning that practically speaking, the June 9th primary is the election. In South Carolina, we don't register to vote by party, and all primaries are open, meaning you're free to vote in either the Republican or Democratic primary ballot. Of course, there are other parties, but they don't have a primary in our state. We did an episode that explains how all this works, and we'll link it in the show notes for you. If you want to see which district you live in and who will be on your ballot, you can check out the links on the episode page for a sample ballot from the South Carolina Election Commission. All of the details on how these interviews worked are at the end of the episode and in the show notes. But in short, know that each candidate had the same 3 questions and 10 timed minutes to respond. To find links to each candidate's campaign information, please check the show notes. For this episode, you will hear from Republican primary candidates David Atchley, Robert E. Lee, and William Timmons. Candidates from other parties have also filed to run, but only one per party, and so they will face the winner of the Republican primary on the ballot in November. First up alphabetically is David Atchley. I'm pleased to be joined by candidate for U.S. House District 4 in the Republican primary, David Atchley. David, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, tell us about yourself and why you're running for office.
Well, David Atchley, I've grown up primarily in the upstate, building businesses for the last 40 years in the law enforcement space, working in higher ed for fund development, and more recently having my own business working with brands all over the upstate. The reason I'm running, I worked for Strom Thurmond as a Senate floor page back when I was 15, and he made me promise in my lifetime that I would run for some sort of office. It could be school board, it could be city council, but he highly encouraged me to run for federal office because that's where I was learning on the grandest stage in America, or in the world for that matter. So I'm fulfilling a promise, and I intend on running hard. Right now is an important time in our government history. I believe District 4 is very underrepresented, both here locally and in D.C. And the one thing I hear all the time, and I did over 160 different interviews back in last May through the summer, is no one's here to represent us. So let's make our district first, Washington second. It's important. It is your job. But let's work on local issues because of a federally elected official, senator or U.S. congressman, they show up on business development meetings with people like Sam Condorus or Alan Smith in Spartanburg. They feel like the conversion rate on landing a business or a new business comes more likely if there's a federal presence. That's one thing I can do. I spent all my life building business, 40 plus years, and experience does matter. And I believe you bring that to the table, you can make a difference here and in D.C.
Thank you. What do you believe are the biggest issues facing constituents?
Once again, going back to all my interviews, they feel that the district's not represented, but they look at how our growth is so large, and you're not going to stop growth in the upstate. The cat's out of the bag, and we need to focus on local issues. In D.C., you can bring more federal dollars if you make our MSA, one MSA between Spartanburg and Greenville. That makes you the size of a Salt Lake City, Utah. There's many more business looks, people that are relocating business, starting business, go to that as a source. And that gives you more of a fertile playing ground. We can also get many more federal dollars for infrastructure. Infrastructure matters. Our roads, if you haven't been on 85 recently, I think we are connected to Spartanburg because we sit there and go 1 inch at a time and wait and wait and wait. And we do need to invest in that. We're woefully behind on roads, but also water, education, everything that goes with a good quality of life needs to be invested in now, or you'll lose that. You know, we live in a great place now, but the wrong development can be destructive and will be destructive. So we need to work with federal, state, and local to get the infrastructure we need here.
Thank you. What would be your priorities if elected?
So I look at priorities in the district first, as I just said. But in Washington, there are some issues that we talk about all the time. Term limits, everybody wants them, but no one really pays attention to them. What President Trump suggested as far as term limits is 3 terms for a U.S. congressman. That would be my stance. That would be my term limit. And then 2 terms for a senator, so 12 years. If you took that math today in Congress, I think the stat was like 70% of our current politicians would be out of office. And I don't think the Constitution is written for career politicians. I grew up under the Limbaugh family name, so I grew up on a farm, working in hard value. My dad was president of Clemson back in the day, taught me the value of doing what you said. But Strom Thurmond taught me, not term limits, obviously, it was 60 years, serve your constituents first. Be there, answer the phone, because you represent everyone, not just Republicans or Democrats. You represent your district first. And same with Carroll Campbell in the day. If you remember him, he was a great House of Representatives and governor that would help the constituents first. He'd sit down with my dad at the president's house in Clemson and talk about the district first. We need that. And if you don't listen, you certainly can't apply here or in D.C. what you know. Second thing in Washington, we need more investment in AI. We need to put boundaries around artificial intelligence. That technology is not going away. We use it every day. It's only going to grow. But if we don't put meaningful boundaries around it, the misuse of that technology can and will present itself. But we need to get on meaningful legislation right now and do that in a responsible way that we win that revolution, because we won every one since the last 5 of them. The internet, manufacturing, industrial revolution. We've won all those. We got to win this, but we got to do it responsibly. And then last 2, I guess, in D.C. that are important to me, agriculture, we ignore it. But agriculture is under the largest crisis in 250 years. We are losing our family farms. We still have our family farm in Missouri, the Limbaugh farm. And we lost 2 out of our 4 farmers this year because they can't make money. They're going bankrupt. And these aren't farmers that you just get off the streets. These are 100-year generational family farmers. And they're going out of business. You don't get that back. And then furthermore, how many acres in the Midwest that are just in receivership? And we cannot lose those to foreign interests. And we allow it to be sold to anyone. We don't have boundaries around that. We certainly can go to China and buy their land. We certainly shouldn't allow our American hardline. 250 years of this great country was built on farmers. We have to invest on them. We have to provide opportunities for them to make money and loans so they can keep making money in input costs, tractors or equipment costs. All that goes into farming. And if we look at it this way, 30 years ago, what was the average price of a bushel of corn? About $3.60, roughly. You know what it is today? $4.20. 30 years, there's been a little bit of expense and inflation since then. So big part of me is putting legislation around that. We got to invest in our mental health. We don't do that. I'm all about the right to bear arms for sure, but we got to make sure we put mental health first, because people just don't show up mentally ill. They end up mentally ill. Some of them do. But if we invest more there, which very little is done, we got to get on it. And then, some of the transparency in healthcare is a big thing. Is, I pay for my own insurance. Why is my out-of-pocket expense a lot more than someone that does have insurance? There's a problem there, so we have to have that. Anyway.
Thank you. We have a little bit more time. Is there anything else you'd like to share with listeners?
I think this is an important election in lots of ways. South Carolina, I'm running. I'm not a politician or a lawyer, and you can probably hear that right now, which is fine. I don't plan on being one. I come with experience, 45 years of it, demonstrated in all industries, from law enforcement to higher education and fund development to running brands like Buzz Aldrin and his foundation. It is important to show up on June 9th, and we can't have 12% of our voters elect our next leadership. And we need to have statesmen that lead the way, not career politicians. We got away from statesmen, and there were great ones that led the way here before. Our country needs to get back to that. And South Carolina is the best district, I believe, in the country. You can't argue with it. Needs to continually to be invested in. Show up if you want to get behind me. We need all the help we can get with volunteers, events, awareness. That's the day and only day that will matter.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for your willingness to serve.
All right. Thank you. We'll see what happens.
Next up is Robert E. Lee. I'm pleased to be here with Robert E. Lee, who is running for U.S. House of Representatives, District 4. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad that there's outlets like this that can let the voters know who's on the ballot and why.
Thank you. Well, tell us about yourself and why you're running for office.
Yes, I'm Robert E. Lee, no relation, but it's a fun name. So running for South Carolina's Congressional District 4, engineer working in the upstate in manufacturing for the past 15 years, various companies designing things, building things that work, flowing down requirements from the customer and from specifications, and Christian, husband, father, and like so many people around me that I talk to, they're just fed up with what's going on in Washington, and particularly in the last 2 years, all the broken promises. We all voted for Trump for a huge change. We were expecting justice to be served. He had been shot at. We were expecting him to just drain the swamp and just clean house, drain the swamp, release the files, stop the wars. There are all these things that we were very psyched up to have happen, and we were let down. And our representatives all across the board and the Republican Party did not push back whenever we start to see overreach of the federal or the executive branch of Trump's administration, or just the broken promises in general.
Thank you. What do you believe are the biggest issues facing constituents?
The biggest ones are just it's the 180 change from what we voted for and what we're getting. We want it to have no wars. Trump did a great job. I voted for him 3 times. And had no wars in his last administration. We thought that we could count on him for that. But he didn't, of course, stop the Ukraine war on day one. And what was going on in Gaza is still going on. It's settled down a little bit, but we've got stuff going on in Lebanon as well. It's just terrible what's happening and the cost of life that's taking place in all of these areas, and the obvious way to avoid these conflicts were not taken. We were, in particular in Iran, we were in negotiations with them. We had diplomatic relations, talks, and it seemed to be going okay. And then we do a surprise attack on the leader and the religious leader, killing the family. All it just doesn't look good, because when I was in grade school, when Japan attacked us in Pearl Harbor, that they were the bad guys. It's like, do we not have the power to negotiate? Negotiation's a very powerful thing that countries can do, and when you have to resort to violence, that seems like you're backed into a corner. And what are we getting out of that? We don't know. It definitely doesn't help with affordability whenever we close that Strait of Hormuz, which we all knew they would close that. It's not a surprise. That was their strategy. So that's closed. Gas prices going up. It's affecting other countries a lot more than us. There's possible famine going to break out because of that. But let's see. Just completely avoidable. A completely avoidable war, and we don't know why we're into it. We don't know what type of strings we're pulling the president, what made the 180 shift, but it's not something we wanted. It's something Trump specifically spoke against very vocally. In particular, I think of a clip where he's talking about Obama. He's like, Obama is going to get us into a war with Iran because he cannot negotiate. Trump's he's known for a good negotiator, so that piece really hit hard. But it's ironic that now we're in a war with Iran. We're losing. Well, I mean, not. I guess it depends. We're not winning. We're not making any progress. It's not helping the economy. So stopping the wars is one of the largest issues that's affecting everybody at the gas pumps. When I'm handing out cards, I've talked to 102 people, but during this campaign, but handing out cards at gas stations, that is just where I get the biggest reception. They're like, yes, I don't need this gas price. I'm not really in favor of this war right now. It's not helping. And the Epstein files, Trump promised to release the Epstein files. It was just something Marjorie Taylor Greene said that she just expected him to roll it out on day one, say, here they are. This is it mostly implicates Democrats, so let's just go at it and release them all and start prosecuting. But that didn't happen, and people who pushed for it, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, they became enemies of the administration. Marjorie Trader Greene, when she actually campaigned for Trump on her own dime, one of his biggest supporters, and just to see the way he turned on her was very alarming. And the same thing going on with Thomas Massie, how $10 million has been put against his campaign from same people who donated to Trump recently. You just have to wonder what is so important that they're buying. This is the guy who's trying to get the Epstein files released, and he created that petition. So why is he enemy number one to the what's now I don't know, just the Republican Party? But I don't think he's an enemy of the Republican Party. It's whoever's pulling the strings behind that. And we don't want. Some of my volunteers say they don't want to start talking about the Epstein files. They say, "Well, that's old. Let's let's move on to something else. People are tired about it." But we don't want to take pressure off of something like we did on the COVID cover-up. 5 years ago today, Fauci lied in front of the Senate 3 times, saying that he did not fund gain-of-function research. Today's the statute of limitations on that, but our Senate has not been indicting them, so the Senate has problems as well. There's low-hanging fruit that we can pull at to get transparency, and this is, I think, particularly important because of the hantavirus outbreak, and everybody's starting to have memories about the COVID experience. And have we made a lot of progress in getting to the root cause of the COVID epidemic 5 years ago that killed millions, and then the questionable vaccines that caused myocarditis? Have there been prosecutions in that? Have there been? No, there hasn't. So that's one of the biggest things that affects everybody all around the world, and it definitely affects South Carolina Congressional District 4.
What would be your priorities if elected?
Pushing for transparency. Let's see. It'll be 25 years since 9/11, so there's a lot of files that are still under wraps under that thing. And if it is what it is, what's this? I kind of attacked the towers. Why do we with planes and why do we have to keep so much of that stuff under wraps? So we can definitely disclose some of that. Um, Creating transparency on these, of course, pushing on the Epstein files. Transparency will help rebuild trust in Washington, D.C. So many people are they've just had it with politics just because they're not getting what they want. And if we can get transparency and some justice, that would help rebuild that trust. I'm not bought. One of the problems with our Congress, pretty much most of them, is they're bought by corporations and other entities, special interest groups. If you look at the federal budget, you'll see that 28% of it is going to health. Well, spending, deficit spending that creates inflation, that's a burden on all of us. If you look at what we're spending on health, it's more than defense spending and Social Security. And we're paying for Medicare and Medicaid. Those aren't going anywhere. They provide benefits to people. But if you look at what Medicare and Medicaid buy from the health services, you'll see that they're having to deal with vertically integrated monopolies. There's becoming fewer and fewer entities that supply health services and this kind of started back in Obamacare, where insurance companies were incentivized to vertically integrate and monopolize with that, because they would have to give back some amount of money after they so instead of giving the money back, they vertically integrate. And if you look at the Congress, they've had a lot of donations from those entities, which help them get the sweetheart deals. So I would try to break that up. That's where I was going with that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for your willingness to serve.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Last up is William Timmons. I am pleased to be here with William Timmons, who is running for re-election for the U.S. House of Representatives in the 4th District. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, tell us about yourself and why you're running for re-election.
Well, I've been in office for 7.5 years, and I was serving in the state senate before that. The reason I got involved in politics is because I was a frustrated small business owner. So going back decades and decades, my family's been in the upstate for almost 100 years, been in South Carolina for close to 300. And we have a family business, and I have a very big family. And so I did not want to go into the family business, and I started a couple of businesses. I started a CrossFit gym in what is now Unity Park. I started a yoga studio, I had a law practice, and I got frustrated as a small business owner, and I spent all my time on taxes and regulations. The city of Greenville didn't like that I was in the way of their beautiful park, and they made it more difficult for me than they should have. So I thought that they were doing things that the government should not do, and I always said that if you were willing to complain about something as much as I was, you needed to be willing to do something to try to fix it. So that's the small business side, which is really half the reason that I got involved in politics. And then the other half is my time as a prosecutor. So I went to law school after undergrad, and I worked here in the 13th Circuit Solicitor's Office. I prosecuted murders, armed robberies, domestic violence, white-collar crime, a number of other things. And I just saw this incredible opportunity for the criminal justice system to use technology to improve. It was extremely archaic. We were using paper when we should be using code and applications, and the ability of getting body camera footage or police reports or servicing victims, it was just all so incredibly archaic. And I knew that we could do better. And so really it was 50% my frustrations as a small business owner and 50% my frustrations as a prosecutor that I thought that I could help improve the lives of other small business owners and really the community by giving my efforts to improve the criminal justice system. So I ended up running for state senate, and I was in the state senate for 2 years. I ran against a 37-year incumbent, which is never fun. but I was successful. And then I ultimately ran for Congress 2 years later, and I've been there. And honestly, it's been incredibly rewarding. I always say you can be a show horse or a workhorse in the legislature. And I've always done my best to be a workhorse. And I've always done my best to earn the respect and the trust of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, because that's how you're able to get things done. And I was very successful in the state Senate. I passed a number of very consequential bills as a literally baby member of the state Senate. And in Congress, we've been able to put a lot of points on the board. And honestly, this Congress right now has been the most rewarding public service professional experience of my life. We have President Trump in the White House, we have the majority in the House and the majority in the Senate, and we have been able to transform our country and the world for the better. And I really do think that our 250th anniversary coming up here in a few months, we have created the opportunity for us to have the next 250 years be better than the last. And so I'm going to keep working hard this year, and I hope to be reelected and finish Trump's last 2 years in office. And I just think that this is a once in a generation, once in a lifetime opportunity to leave the world a better place than I found it. And it is really truly an honor to serve, and we do everything we can for the district. And I've told everybody that I'm running one more time for the House, and then I'm coming home. So if elected, I got 2 more years, and I'm very excited to not live in airports and only have one house. So yeah, I hope that I get to spend my last 2 years finishing the promises the president made, and big things ahead.
Thank you. What do you believe are the biggest issues facing your constituents?
So right now, I think the biggest issue is global competitiveness, and we've spent this entire Congress on it. So the last 4 years, the Biden administration, we got so far out of balance, whether it's our trade policy, whether it's our social policy, whether it's our lack of leadership in the global community. I mean, inflation was out of control because Democrats spent $7 trillion. Just the American dream was on life support. I didn't even mention the fact that 30 million people crossed the southern border illegally. So all of those things were really damaging the American dream. And that's what the president ran on. President Trump ran on making America great again. It's as simple as that. And he ran on securing the border. He ran on forcing our allies and our adversaries to treat us fairly in global trade. He ran on keeping Americans safe. You name it, he's been delivering on those promises since day one. Just last year, we secured the border. We haven't had any illegal border crossings in, I think, 15 months, something that most people thought was never possible, but was actually not even that hard. We've renegotiated all of our trade agreements, and those trade agreements are now fair, and it allows businesses here in the upstate to compete in the global economy. We've driven down energy prices until recently. We've addressed permitting and regulatory reform to cut the red tape to allow businesses to compete in the global economy. We've passed an incredible tax bill, the working family tax cuts, and that gives businesses the certainty to invest, and it gives just the framework through which you have the stability to grow your business. So all of that stuff was designed to basically make U.S. businesses competitive in the global economy. No other part of the country is as prosperous as we are right now. Our biggest problem in Greenville and Spartanburg is growth. We have had 100,000 people move here in the last couple of years, and it's putting strain on our infrastructure. And we have a whole litany of problems. We got traffic now, which, I mean, man, the traffic's not fun. But we're dealing with it. And I'll tell you this, it's better to have those problems than it is to have problems in other parts of the country where the state, federal, and local government are adversely impacting people's ability to work, to raise, to grow a business, to raise a family. And so all of that goes into the mix when I say what is the most important thing for this district. The most important thing is for the federal government to get all of the ingredients right, and the state government to get all of the ingredients right to allow people to raise their family, start a family, to start a business, to pursue the American dream. And we're moving in the right direction over the last 18 months. And I think that we have an incredible opportunity here in the next 2 years to really solidify such an incredible, strong foundation for decades to come.
What would be your priorities if reelected?
So I've got a number of bills that I have been working on for years, and we just had a big win 2 weeks ago, the TABS Act, the Timely and Accurate Benefits Act. So what that does is it uses technology. Again, talked about using technology to make the government more efficient with the criminal code in South Carolina. But what the TABS Act does is it uses technology to verify income eligibility for social safety net programs. So every year, the federal government spends $1.5 trillion with a T dollars on social safety nets, and the biggest ones are Medicaid, food stamps, SNAP, just all these different programs, and they're great programs. We need them because everybody's gonna fall down and they're gonna have a hard time, and we got to give them the ability to get back up. So I've been working on the TABS Act. What TABS Act does is it, instead of just using every state's required to confirm income eligibility, you don't make enough money. So the TABS Act uses technology. You log into a website, then you log into your bank account, your Zelle, your Cash App, your Venmo, and you then get benefits immediately. They're able to verify you don't make too much money immediately, and you lose benefits if you make too much money. So that saved 20% in a Missouri pilot program, which is $200-ish billion a year, which over 10 years is over $2 trillion. So that's important because we're getting benefits to people that actually deserve them. But more importantly, we can then use the new technology to get rid of the benefits cliff. People always reference the benefits cliff, and there's a whole cottage industry surrounding using all these different government resources to create a base level of living, and then you work off the grid in order to get more money. So by doing this, you can give more benefits to people that need them, and then you wean them off and you create incentive structures to do away with the benefits cliff. So it actually is going to get people out of this cycle of generational poverty. And this is something I've been working on for 2 years. It just passed the Oversight Committee a couple weeks ago, and we're going to vote it on the floor. Hopefully it passes in the next couple months, and I don't have to keep working on this bill, and it just gets implemented. But generally speaking, getting things out of the House is step one. The Senate, they take these long naps, and they got their Jell-O in the afternoon. So we got to get them back to work sometimes. But getting out of the House is a huge step first. And we got other bills in the hopper that we're working on, but I think we're running out of time.
Well, we thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your willingness to continue to serve.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the candidates. Here is more detail on our process. All candidates received the same 3 questions at the time of their invitation to join us shortly after the filing period closed, and they were given 10 timed minutes for their interview. Candidates were allowed to bring along a companion, such as a campaign manager, family member, or friend, and to record our session themselves. There were no edits made to the interviews. We've put links to the participating candidates' preferred internet presence on the episode page.
Hi, Simple Civics Greenville County listeners, Nathaniel here. If you've made it this far, then we think you'll really love our newsletter. Sign up for bonus content, updates, and more right in your inbox. Look for the link in the description that says newsletter to sign up, or visit us at simplecivicsgreenvillecounty.org. Find the link in the menu that says newsletter and sign up there. We'll see you again next week.